Growing up, I always thought intelligence should speak for itself, that merit would win out over favoritism, that the truth would eventually surface like oil in water. But life taught me otherwise, at least for a while. But before we jump back, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I still remember the day my brother Nathan looked me straight in the eyes across our father's mahogany desk and said, "Let's face it, Allie, you're just the stupid sister with big dreams. Marketing is cute, but the real business happens in finance." His smirk taunted me as he twirled Dad's fountain pen between his fingers, a pen that should have been shared between us. I didn't cry. I refused to give him that satisfaction. Instead, I quietly gathered my proposal documents detailing how we could revolutionize Horizon Solutions with AI integration, walked out the door, and made a promise to myself that would change everything. I was always the odd one out in the Chen family. While my mother Margaret and brother Nathan shared the same analytical, by-the-book thinking as my father, I was the creative force, the visionary who could see where technology was heading before others caught a glimpse. Growing up in our Victorian home in suburban Westridge, family dinners often turned into business meetings where Nathan would proudly discuss financial projections while Dad nodded approvingly. Meanwhile, my ideas about customer experience and emerging technologies were met with indulgent smiles, the kind you give a child with an active imagination. "That's interesting, Allie," my father would say before turning back to Nathan. "Now, about those quarterly numbers." I tried not to let it bother me. I focused on my education, throwing myself into studying computer science and marketing at Westridge Tech, developing expertise in artificial intelligence systems that could transform business operations. While Nathan followed directly in Dad's footsteps with his business administration degree, I carved my own path. I believed that one day they would recognize the value I could bring to Horizon Solutions, the technology consulting firm my father had built from nothing 25 years ago. My father, Robert Chen, was a brilliant businessman, but a traditional father. He'd built Horizon from a tiny operation in our garage into a respected regional firm with 40 employees. An immigrant son with a relentless work ethic, he believed, in hierarchy, structure, and the unquestionable wisdom of experience over innovation. He wasn't cruel. He was simply a man of his generation who saw his son as his natural successor. Despite the constant dismissal of my ideas, I stayed close to the business. I interned every summer, learning every aspect from the ground up. I understood our clients better than anyone, their frustrations, their needs, their unspoken wishes. I created detailed plans for how we could pivot toward AI-enhanced solutions that would revolutionize our offerings. When I brought these plans to my father, he would review them with puzzled amusement. "This is all very forward-thinking, Allie," he'd say, setting the documents aside. "But Horizon has succeeded by being reliable, not experimental. These startups with their AI this and blockchain that, they come and go. We're still standing. Because we're consistent." I couldn't make him see that consistency without innovation was just a slow path to obsolescence. Things changed dramatically when my father had his heart attack. It wasn't severe, thankfully, but it was enough to make him consider succession planning more seriously. I still remember sitting in the hospital room, the antiseptic smell burning my nostrils as I watched him grip Nathan's hand. "I need to step back," he said, his voice weaker than I'd ever heard it. "Nathan, it's time you took more control. You understand the financial backbone of this company better than anyone." I waited for him to turn to me, to acknowledge my role, to perhaps suggest that Nathan and I could lead together, combining his financial acumen with my technological vision. But the moment never came. It was as if I were invisible, a ghost hovering at the periphery of a pivotal family moment. Nathan caught my eye across the hospital bed, and I saw something triumphant flash across his face before he composed himself into the responsible, concerned son. "I won't let you down, Dad," he said solemnly. In the weeks that followed, Nathan settled into the role of CEO with remarkable ease. He redecorated Dad's office, hired an assistant who seemed selected more for her measurements than her qualifications, and began holding court with clients who had known me since I was a teenager, without once mentioning my contributions. I tried to be patient. I presented my ideas in meetings, backed by research, market analysis, and detailed implementation plans for how we could integrate AI solutions into our existing services. But Nathan would cut me off mid-presentation, redirecting the conversation to more pressing matters, like office coffee suppliers or parking arrangements. It all came to a head during a strategy meeting where I'd been asked to present my marketing plan for the next quarter. I had worked late for weeks, analyzing competitors, creating customer profiles, and developing a comprehensive digital strategy. 5 minutes into my presentation, Nathan started answering emails on his phone. "Nathan," I said, pausing my slides, "is there something more important happening right now?" He looked up, genuinely surprised that I'd called him out. "Just keeping things moving, Allie. Some of us can multitask." He gestured vaguely at the screen. "This is all fine for the marketing department, but let's not forget this is a supportive function, not a revenue driver." The room fell uncomfortably silent. Even Nathan's loyal supporters shifted awkwardly in their seats. "Actually," I replied, my voice steady despite the heat rising in my cheeks, "this marketing strategy is projected to drive a 28% increase in qualified leads, which directly impacts revenue. If you'd been listening, you'd know that." His face darkened. "We'll discuss this later, Allie. Let's move on to finance." Later that day, he called me into his office, Dad's office, and closed the door. I'll never forget how he leaned back. In our father's chair, putting his feet up on the desk our father had always treated with respect. "Allie, I'm going to be straight with you because we're family," he began, his tone condescending. "Your role here is becoming problematic. You're constantly pushing these experimental ideas that distract from our core business." "Those experimental ideas are the future of this industry," I countered. "Our competitors are already—" He held up his hand, cutting me off. "Our competitors can chase trends if they want. Horizon has succeeded by being stable. Dad understood that. Dad built this company in a different era," I argued. "The market is changing. We need to evolve." Nathan sighed dramatically, as if explaining something to a child. "Look, you've always been the creative one, the dreamer, and that's cute. But running a business requires more than dreams. It requires hard numbers, practical decisions." I felt my jaw tighten. "I have the numbers. I've shown you the market research, the projected ROI. Let's face it, Allie," he interrupted, leaning forward. "You're just the stupid sister with big dreams. Marketing is cute, but the real business happens in finance." The words hit me like physical blows. Not because they were true, but because they confirmed what I'd suspected all along. In Nathan's eyes, and perhaps my father's too, I would never be more than an afterthought, a feminine presence in a masculine world, tolerated, but never truly respected. I gathered my presentation materials and stood up, my legs surprisingly steady given how shaken I felt inside. "You know what, Nathan? You're right about one thing. I am a dreamer. I dream of a company that doesn't get left behind because it was too arrogant to innovate. I dream of leadership that values diverse perspectives, and clearly, I need to chase those dreams somewhere else." I walked out of his office with my head held high, but inside, my mind was racing. This wasn't just about sibling rivalry anymore. This was about everything I'd worked for, everything I believed in professionally. I had poured my heart and soul into Horizon Solutions, imagining that one day I would help lead it into the future. Now that future had been snatched away, not because I wasn't capable, but because I wasn't Nathan. As I packed up my desk that evening, my colleague Taylor Rodriguez stopped by. We had started at Horizon around the same time, and unlike most others who aligned themselves with Nathan for political reasons, Taylor had always been straight with me. "So it's true? You're leaving?" Taylor asked, leaning against my doorframe. I nodded, carefully placing family photos into a cardboard box. "There's nothing for me here anymore, Taylor. Nathan's made that clear." Taylor frowned. "You know most of the team respects your ideas more than his, right? Your AI integration proposal was brilliant. We all know it." "Thanks," I said, managing a small smile. "But respect doesn't equal influence. Not when the CEO thinks you're just the stupid sister." Taylor's eyes widened. "He actually said that to you?" "Word for word," I confirmed, feeling the sting of the memory. Along with how marketing is cute, but not real business. That's... Taylor shook her head. "That's so wrong on so many levels." I shrugged, trying to project more confidence. Then I felt. Maybe it's for the best. I've had ideas brewing for years that would never fly here. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Maybe it's time I built something of my own. As I drove home that night, tears finally coming once I was alone in my car, I felt a strange mix of grief and liberation. I had lost my place in the family business, but perhaps I had also broken, free of limitations I hadn't fully acknowledged. The dismissive attitudes, the casual sexism, the resistance to change, all of it had formed a cage around my potential that I couldn't see until I was pushed out. At home, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my balcony overlooking downtown Westridge. The city lights twinkled like opportunities waiting to be seized. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Nathan told us what happened. Your father is very disappointed. Please reconsider. Not, we're disappointed. Not, let's talk about this. Just the weight of my father's disappointment, delivered secondhand through my mother, with the assumption that I would fall in line, as always." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and began writing a business plan for a company that existed only in my mind. A company that would embrace the future rather than cling to the past. A company where innovation wasn't just tolerated, but celebrated. A company that would, someday, make Nathan's words echo back to him with painful irony. I named it Pinnacle Innovations. Part 2. The Breaking Point. In the months that followed my departure from Horizon Solutions, I threw myself into building Pinnacle Innovations from scratch. I rented a tiny office space in a co-working building downtown, maxed out my credit cards on essential equipment, and lived on ramen and determination. Every rejection from potential investors just fueled my resolve. Every door that closed pushed me to find another way in, or to build my own door. The irony wasn't lost on me that after years of fighting to be heard at Horizon, I was now responsible for every decision, every failure, every success. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. I focused Pinnacle on exactly what Horizon had rejected: AI-enhanced business solutions that could transform how companies understood their data, predicted market trends, and connected with customers. It was cutting-edge work that required both technical expertise and creative vision, precisely the combination my brother had dismissed as worthless. 6 months in, I'd secured 2 small clients and was barely keeping the lights on when I received an unexpected visit. Victoria Wallace, a former client from Horizon who had always treated me with respect, appeared in my modest office doorway. "So this is where vision comes to thrive," she said, glancing around at my minimalist setup. "I've been following your journey, Allison." I smiled, genuinely happy to see her. "Victoria, what brings you to my humble startup?" "Curiosity at first," she admitted, settling into the chair across from me. Then, opportunity. I heard what you're building here. AI-enhanced analytics that can predict customer behavior patterns and optimize operations accordingly? That's exactly what Henderson Global has been searching for. My heart skipped. Henderson Global was a massive player. Landing them as a client would change everything for Pinnacle. The thing is, Victoria continued, leaning forward, I asked Horizon for something similar 3 months ago. Your brother assured me it wasn't necessary, that traditional analytics were more reliable. He called AI a trendy distraction. I bit back a retort about Nathan's short-sightedness. And what do you think? I think, she said slowly, that companies who dismiss AI as a trend will be obsolete within 5 years. I think Nathan is running your father's playbook in a game that's completely changed. She pulled out a folder and placed it on my desk. This is what Henderson Global needs. Can Pinnacle deliver it? I opened the folder, scanning the project requirements. It was ambitious, challenging, and exactly the kind of work I'd been dreaming of doing. Yes, I said confidently. We can deliver this. Victoria smiled. Good, because I'm not just bringing you Henderson Global. I'm joining your board of advisors if you'll have me. Talent like yours needs guidance and connections to truly soar. That meeting changed everything. With Victoria's mentorship and the Henderson Global contract, Pinnacle began to grow rapidly. We moved to a proper office space, hired a team of brilliant developers and analysts, and began attracting attention in the industry. Each success brought new clients, new opportunities, and increasingly panicked texts from my mother. Your father? Saw Pinnacle mentioned in Business Weekly, she wrote one evening. Nathan says you're poaching Horizon's client base. This family conflict is breaking your father's heart. I stared at the message, feeling the familiar tug of guilt battling with my growing confidence. I hadn't specifically targeted Horizon's clients, but word had spread about what we were offering, and several had approached us on their own. Business wasn't personal. Isn't that what my father had always claimed? I was halfway through typing a placating response when another text arrived. Nathan says what you're doing is unsustainable anyway. These AI solutions are just a fad that will burn out, and when it does, don't expect to come back to Horizon. My finger hovered over the delete button before I put my phone away without responding. Nathan was still dismissing me, still underestimating both me and the market shifts I understood better than he ever would. Nothing had changed, except now his dismissal had no power over my career. 9 months after founding Pinnacle, I attended the annual Westridge Tech Summit, a prestigious gathering of industry leaders and innovators. Pinnacle had been invited to present our work with Henderson Global, a significant honor for such a young company. I'd prepared meticulously, knowing this could be Pinnacle's breakthrough moment. As I set up for my presentation, I spotted Nathan, across the exhibition hall, surrounded by Horizon's traditional display booth. Our eyes met briefly before he deliberately turned away, leaning in to speak with Eric Thompson, his loyal friend and VP of Sales. I focused on my presentation, pushing thoughts of Nathan aside. When my turn came, I walked onto the stage with the confidence that comes from believing completely in what you've built. I spoke about how AI could transform businesses not just incrementally, but fundamentally, illustrating with real results from our work with Henderson Global. The audience response was overwhelming. Questions poured in, business cards were exchanged, and potential clients lined up to speak with me afterward. In the midst of this triumph, I caught sight of Nathan again, his face stormy as he watched, from the periphery. Later, at the summit's networking reception, I was deep in conversation with a potential investor when Nathan appeared at my elbow, scotch in hand, and a false smile plastered on his face. Quite a performance today, little sister, he said, his voice just low enough that only I could hear the edge in it. Dad would be impressed with your showmanship, if not your business sense. I excused myself from my conversation partner and turned to face him directly. It's not showmanship when you have results to back it up, Nathan. But then, you wouldn't know about that lately, would you? His smile tightened. Enjoying your little moment in the sun? Horizon has weathered many trendy upstarts over the years. We'll still be standing when your AI bubble bursts. Is that what you tell yourself? I asked, keeping my voice level despite the anger simmering beneath. That my success is just a trend? That companies like Henderson Global don't know what they're doing when they choose Pinnacle over Horizon? At the mention of Henderson Global, one of Horizon's oldest clients, Nathan's expression darkened. You deliberately targeted them, after everything Dad did for you? Dad did for me? I interrupted, disbelief coloring my voice. He systematically overlooked me, just like you did. And Henderson came to me after you told them AI was unnecessary. Your arrogance lost that client, not my actions. Nathan moved closer, menace in his posture. You think you're so clever, don't you? The genius sister with her fancy algorithms. But this industry is built on relationships, stability, trust. Things Dad spent decades building that you're too immature to understand. I felt eyes turning toward us, aware we were creating a scene but past the point of caring. No, Nathan. I understand exactly what Dad built. I also understand that he and you are so blinded by pride that you can't see the world changing around you. Just the stupid sister, right? How's that assessment working out for you now? His face flushed with anger, and for a moment, I thought he might actually make a scene. Instead, he drained his scotch and set the glass down with controlled precision. Enjoy your moment, Allie, he said, his voice cold. The market is fickle, and startups crash as quickly as they rise. When Pinnacle inevitably fails, don't come crying to family. As he walked away, I realized something profound. For the first time since our childhood, Nathan saw me as a threat. Not just an annoyance, not just the little sister with impractical ideas, but a legitimate business rival. The realization should have been satisfying, but instead, it left me hollow. Why had it taken direct competition for him to finally see my value? That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my apartment balcony until dawn, replaying not just the confrontation with Nathan, but years of similar dismissals, of ideas ignored, of contributions minimized. I thought about my father, who had built something remarkable, but couldn't see beyond his own vision to embrace the future or to truly see his daughter. As the sun rose over Westridge, painting the city in golden light, I made a decision. I wasn't building Pinnacle to spite Nathan or to prove something to my father. I was building it because I genuinely believed in the work we were doing. The family drama was a distraction I couldn't afford if I wanted to succeed on my own terms. I picked up my phone and did something I should have done months ago. I blocked Nathan's number and my mother's as well. It was a temporary measure, a space I needed to focus on what mattered, growing Pinnacle into everything I knew it could be. The family that had shaped me, for better and worse, would have to wait. I had a future to build, and for once, I would do it without their voices in my head. A year and a half after founding Pinnacle Innovations, we had grown to a team of 35 talented professionals working from a sleek office in downtown Westridge. Our client list included some of the biggest names in various industries, all drawn to our unique combination of AI expertise and human-centered design. We had become exactly what I had envisioned, an innovative force that transformed how businesses operated in the digital age. I had largely succeeded in putting family drama aside, focusing instead on building something meaningful. The blocks. On my family members' numbers had eventually come down, replaced by carefully maintained boundaries. I spoke with my mother occasionally, keeping conversations light and steering away from business topics. My father remained distant, communicating only through my mother. And Nathan and I maintained radio silence, which suited me perfectly. That carefully constructed separation shattered one rainy Tuesday morning when my assistant knocked on my office door, looking uncomfortable. "Allison, there's a situation in the lobby," she said hesitantly. "Your brother is here. He's demanding to see you." I felt a familiar knot form in my stomach. "Did he say what this is about?" She shook her head. "Just that it's urgent family business. He seems agitated." Taking a deep breath, I nodded. "Give me 5 minutes, then send him in." Those 5 minutes were spent gathering my composure, reminding myself that this was my company, my territory. Whatever storm Nathan was bringing, I would weather it on my terms. When he walked in, I barely recognized him. The polished, confident executive I'd known had been replaced by someone disheveled and wild-eyed. His normally immaculate suit was wrinkled, his tie askew. "Nathan," I said evenly, remaining seated behind my desk. "This is unexpected." He paced in front of my desk, running his hands through his hair. "Cut the corporate pleasantries, Allie. You know exactly why I'm here." I raised an eyebrow. "Actually, I don't. We haven't spoken in over a year." "Westridge Financial," he spat. "They were Horizon's biggest client for 15 years. 15 years. And now they're terminating our contract to go with—" He gestured around my office with disgust. "Your little startup." I kept my expression neutral, though internally I was processing this news with surprise. Westridge Financial had approached us 3 weeks earlier, but negotiations were still underway. I hadn't expected them to move so quickly, or to terminate with Horizon before finalizing with us. "Westridge Financial is making a business decision based on their needs," I said carefully. "If they're dissatisfied with Horizon's services—" "Don't give me that corporate bullshit!" Nathan exploded, slamming his hands on my desk. "You deliberately targeted them. You've been systematically going after our client base since day one." I stood up, matching his intensity. "That's not true, and you know it. Clients have come to us because we're offering solutions Horizon refuses to develop. Solutions I tried to bring to Horizon when I was there, if you remember." He laughed bitterly. "Oh, right. Your precious AI solutions. The magic algorithms that supposedly change everything. You've always had your head in the clouds, Allie." "My head in the clouds?" I repeated incredulously. "My head in the clouds? Built this company from nothing to a major competitor in less than 2 years. My head in the clouds is why companies like Westridge Financial are choosing Pinnacle over Horizon." Nathan's face contorted with rage and something else. Fear, I realized. Genuine fear. "Dad is devastated," he said, his voice dropping. "First you abandon the family business, then you actively work to destroy it. What kind of daughter does that?" The accusation stung, despite my resolve to remain professional. "I didn't abandon anything, Nathan. I was pushed out. By you. Just the stupid sister, remember? Those were your exact words." He had the grace to look momentarily ashamed before rallying. "That was. I was under pressure. Dad had just made me CEO. Expectations were high." "Save it," I interrupted. "You said exactly what you thought. You never saw me as an equal, never valued what I brought to the table. You saw me as the stupid sister with cute marketing ideas. Well, this stupid sister built a company that's eating your lunch in the marketplace." We stared at each other. Across my desk, years of resentment, competition, and family dynamics swirling between us. For a moment, I saw the brother I'd looked up to as a child, before business and ego had corrupted our relationship. Then his expression hardened. "Dad wants to see you," he said abruptly. "Tomorrow, dinner at the house." I hesitated. "Why?" "Because despite everything, you're still family," he said, sounding exhausted. "And because Horizon is in trouble. Real trouble. Westridge Financial was just the latest blow." The admission clearly cost him, and despite myself, I felt a twinge of sympathy. What kind of trouble? Nathan ran a hand over his face. The kind that means 25 years of Dad's work might disappear. The kind that means 30 families might lose their income. He looked at me directly. The kind that might destroy him at his age. I sat back down, processing this. Horizon was my father's legacy, a business born of immigrant hustle and relentless hard work. Despite everything, I couldn't bear the thought of it collapsing, of him watching his life's work crumble in his golden years. "I'll be there," I said finally. "But Nathan, I'm not dissolving Pinnacle or handicapping our growth to prop up Horizon. That's not happening." He nodded stiffly. 7 p.m. Don't be late." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "You've done well, Allie. I never thought you had it in you, but—" He gestured around my office. I was wrong about that. It wasn't an apology, not even close, but coming from Nathan, it was monumental. After he left, I sat in silence, trying to process what had just happened. Horizon in trouble. My father wanting to see me. Nathan admitting, however obliquely, that he'd been wrong. I called Taylor, who had joined Pinnacle 6 months after I founded it, bringing valuable insights from Horizon with them. "How bad are things at Horizon?" I asked when they answered. The real story, not the market-facing one. Taylor was silent for a moment. "Bad," they finally said. "They've lost 5 major clients in the past quarter. The partnership with Eastern Tech fell through. Word is they're 3 months from insolvency unless something changes dramatically." "And Nathan's leadership?" Another pause. He's trying to follow your father's playbook in a game that's completely changed, like Victoria said. The market moved, and Horizon didn't." I thanked them and hung up, staring out at the Westridge skyline. The dynasty my father had built was crumbling, and part of me, a small, hurt part I wasn't proud of, felt vindicated. All those years of having my ideas dismissed, of being treated as less than, and now the market was proving me right. But another part of me ached. Despite everything, Robert Chen was my father. Horizon Solutions employed people I had known for years. And Nathan, for all his faults, was still my brother. The dinner tomorrow would be a reckoning long in the making. I didn't know what my father wanted, what solution he imagined to Horizon's problems. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wouldn't sacrifice what I had built to save what they had broken. As rain streamed down my office windows, I opened my laptop and began preparing for the most important and potentially painful family dinner of my life. The family that had shaped me, for better and worse, would have to wait. I had a future to build, and for once I would do it without their voices in my head. The next 6 months were transformative. Free from the emotional weight of family expectations and criticisms, I channeled all my energy into Pinnacle. We expanded our AI offerings, hired specialized talent that Horizon had overlooked, and developed proprietary algorithms that put us years ahead of competitors. Every decision I made was based on vision and data, not emotion or tradition. During this time, I developed a close working relationship with Victoria Wallace. More than a mentor, she became the supportive figure I'd always wished my father had been. She challenged me intellectually, believed in my vision, and never once treated my gender as a limitation. "You know what's remarkable about you, Allison?" she said one evening as we worked late on a particularly challenging client proposal. "You can see both the forest and the trees. Technical expertise and strategic vision rarely coexist in one person." I smiled, still uncomfortable with direct praise. I had to develop both. At Horizon, no one was connecting the dots between what was technically possible and what clients actually needed. Victoria leaned back in her chair, studying me. "Your brother called me last week." My hands froze over my keyboard. "What did he want?" "To understand why Henderson Global chose Pinnacle," she said carefully. He seemed genuinely confused, like he couldn't comprehend what we saw in your approach. I snorted. That sounds like Nathan. I tried to explain the value of predictive analytics and personalized AI solutions, but he kept circling back to Horizon's proven track record and relationship-based approach. Victoria shook her head. It was like trying to explain color to someone who only sees in black and white. That's Nathan's problem, I replied, returning to my work. He thinks the status quo will protect Horizon forever. He can't see that the ground is shifting under his feet. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Has he reached out to you directly? Or your father? No, I said shortly. And I've made it. Clear, I'm not interested in family drama right now. She nodded, respecting my boundaries. Just remember, Allison, sometimes the best revenge isn't cutting people off. It's flourishing so spectacularly they can't ignore you. Her words stayed with me as Pinnacle continued to grow. By our first anniversary, we had 20 employees, a downtown office with a view of the Westridge skyline, and a client list that made industry veterans take notice. Local business publications began running profiles on me, the innovative founder challenging established players with cutting-edge AI solutions. I knew Nathan had seen these articles. Although I'd blocked, his direct communication, mutual connections occasionally mentioned that he was following Pinnacle's progress with increasing concern. My mother had started leaving voicemails again, her tone shifting from guilt-inducing to cautiously admiring. Your father saw your picture in the business journal, she said in one message. He didn't say much, but he kept the article. I thought, you should know. I never returned these calls, but I stopped deleting the messages. Some small part of me still craved that validation, even as I built a life and company independent of my family's approval. The real breaking point, the moment everything truly changed, came during the annual Westridge Business Excellence Awards. Pinnacle had been nominated for Most Innovative Startup, a significant recognition for a company barely a year old. I hadn't planned to attend the ceremony, viewing industry awards as vanity metrics rather than meaningful business indicators, but Victoria insisted. It's not about the award, she argued. It's about visibility. The people who attend these events are exactly who you need to connect with for Pinnacle's next growth phase. Reluctantly, I agreed. I bought a new dress, a deep emerald that felt powerful without trying too hard, and prepared a brief acceptance speech just in case. The night of the ceremony, I arrived at the Westridge Grand Hotel feeling oddly nervous. This wasn't my world. The schmoozing, the self-promotion, the social politics. I preferred the clarity of code and client problems to the ambiguity of networking events. As I entered the ballroom, I immediately spotted Horizon's table near the front. My father sat there, distinguished in his tuxedo, flanked by my mother and Nathan. I hadn't seen any of them in over a year. My father looked older, more tired than I remembered. Nathan was laughing at something, exuding the same confident charm he'd always wielded so effectively. For a moment, I considered leaving. Then Victoria appeared at my side, elegant in navy blue, and squeezed my arm. Head high, she murmured. You've earned your place here. We found our table on the opposite side of the room. Throughout dinner, I could feel Nathan's gaze occasionally drifting toward me, but I steadfastly avoided looking in his direction. I focused on my table companions, other entrepreneurs, potential investors, industry journalists, and found myself actually enjoying the conversations about market trends and technological innovations. When the time came for the Most Innovative Startup Award, I sat up straighter, trying to project calm despite my racing heart. The presenter, the mayor of Westridge, took the stage with the envelope. This year's winner has revolutionized how businesses leverage artificial intelligence, turning complex data into actionable insights that drive real results, she announced. In just 1 year, they've attracted major clients, developed proprietary technology, and challenged established players to rethink their approaches. The winner is Pinnacle Innovations. The applause washed over me like a wave as Victoria nudged me to my feet. As I walked toward the stage, I finally allowed myself to glance at the horizon table. My mother was clapping politely. My father's expression was unreadable. And Nathan? Nathan's face was a storm of conflicting emotions. Anger, disbelief, and something that looked almost like respect. Standing at the podium, award in hand, I found myself deviating from my prepared remarks. "Thank you for this honor," I began. "When I founded Pinnacle Innovations, I was driven by a simple belief that AI could transform how businesses operate, not in some distant future, but right now." Many established companies dismissed this vision as impractical, trendy, or unnecessary. I paused, making brief eye contact with Nathan. What they failed to understand is that innovation isn't about discarding everything that came before. It's about building on foundations while having the courage to adapt. The businesses that thrive don't just acknowledge change, they anticipate it, shape it, and harness it. Another pause. This award belongs to my incredible team at Pinnacle, who believed in this vision when others didn't. It also belongs to every entrepreneur who's been told their ideas are too different, too risky, or too ahead of their time. Keep pushing forward. Eventually, the results speak for themselves. As I returned to my seat, the applause seemed louder than before. Victoria beamed with pride, and several people stopped me to offer congratulations and business cards. But all I could think about was the look on Nathan's face, the realization dawning that his stupid sister had built something legitimate, something threatening, something he could no longer dismiss. Later that evening, as the ceremony wound down, and guests mingled with drinks in hand, I excused myself to get some air. The hotel's terrace offered a spectacular view of nighttime Westridge, the city lights competing with the stars. I leaned against the railing, award in hand, feeling a complex mix of triumph and melancholy. "Congratulations." The voice behind me was so familiar it made my chest tighten. I didn't turn around. "Thank you, Nathan." He moved to stand beside me, keeping a careful distance, both of us looking out at the city rather than at each other. "Your speech was pointed," he said, a hint of the old resentment in his tone. "It was honest," I replied. Silence stretched between us, filled with years of competition, disappointment, and unspoken words. "Dad wanted to come over and congratulate you himself," Nathan said finally. "Mom convinced him to give you space. She said you'd reach out when you were ready." I glanced at him sideways. "And what did you say?" He took a sip of his champagne, considering. "I said they were both wrong. That you weren't avoiding us because you needed time. You were avoiding us because you'd outgrown us." The assessment was surprisingly insightful coming from Nathan. "Maybe," I admitted. "Or maybe I just got tired of fighting to be seen." "You're certainly being seen now," he said, gesturing with his glass toward the ballroom where attendees were discussing the awards. "Henderson Global is just the first. Microfusion is considering switching to Pinnacle. So is Tech Dynamics." The names he mentioned were all longtime Horizon clients. I hadn't been actively pursuing them, but if they were considering Pinnacle, it meant Horizon was truly vulnerable. "That's not my goal, Nathan. I'm not building Pinnacle to destroy Horizon." He laughed, a short, bitter sound. Maybe not intentionally, but that might be the result anyway. He turned to face me fully. "Horizon is in trouble, Allie. Serious trouble." Something in his voice, a crack in the arrogant facade I'd known all my life, made me turn as well. "What kind of trouble?" "The kind that keeps me up at night," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "The kind that has Dad talking about selling to Contech Industries just to avoid bankruptcy." Contech Industries was a corporate giant known for buying struggling tech firms, stripping them for parts, and laying off most of the workforce. The thought of my father's legacy ending that way sent an unexpected pang through me. I thought Horizon was stable, I said cautiously. It was. It should be. Frustration colored his voice. We're doing everything right, everything that's always worked before, but clients keep leaving. They want AI integration, predictive analytics, all the things you're offering at Pinnacle, all the things— He stopped abruptly. All the things I tried to bring to Horizon before you pushed me out, I finished for him. He didn't deny it. Instead, he stared into his champagne as though the answers might be found there. I made a mistake, he said finally, the words clearly difficult for him. I underestimated you. I underestimated the market shift. And now Horizon is paying the price. Coming from Nathan, this was practically a full apology on bended knee. Part of me, the hurt little sister who had been dismissed for years, wanted to savor this moment, to make him grovel a bit more. But another part, the CEO who understood business realities, felt only a hollow vindication. What are you asking? Me for, Nathan? Investment? A merger? My blessing to sell to Contech? He shook his head. I don't know. I didn't plan to have this conversation tonight. He looked at me directly, his expression more vulnerable than I'd seen since we were children. I just know that watching you accept that award made me realize how badly I misjudged you, and how much Horizon needed exactly what you were offering. Before I could respond, Victoria appeared at the terrace doorway. Allison, there's someone from Westridge Financial who wants to speak with you. I nodded, grateful for the interruption. I need to go, Nathan. As I turned to leave, he caught my arm gently. Allie, wait. Will you at least talk to Dad? Just once? I hesitated, years of hurt battling with a lingering sense of family obligation. I'll think about it, I said finally, and walked away. As Victoria and I moved through the crowded ballroom toward the Westridge financial executive, she leaned close. Everything okay? I nodded, my mind still processing the conversation with Nathan. He says Horizon is in trouble, considering selling to Contech. Victoria's eyebrows rose. That's more serious than I thought. She studied me carefully. Does that change anything for you? It was the question I'd be asking myself all night. Did Horizon's troubles change my feelings? Did I care what happened to the company that had dismissed me? To the brother who had underestimated me? To the father who had never seen me clearly? I don't know, I admitted. What I did know was that standing on that terrace with Nathan, seeing him finally acknowledge my success while admitting his failure, should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like standing at a crossroads, unsure which path led forward and which led back. The award in my hand, recognition of everything I'd built without them, suddenly felt heavier than before. Because with it came a choice I hadn't anticipated having to make: continue building Pinnacle's success independently, or find some way to help the family business that had never truly valued me. As I introduced myself to the Westridge financial executive, smiling and discussing potential collaboration opportunities, part of my mind remained on the terrace with Nathan's unexpected vulnerability. The breaking point had come, but not the one I'd expected. It wasn't Pinnacle versus Horizon anymore. It was me, finally in a position of power, deciding what to do with it. The real question wasn't whether I could succeed without my family's approval. I'd already proven that beyond doubt. The question now was whether success meant anything if it came at the cost of watching my father's legacy crumble, even if that legacy had never included me. As the evening drew to a close, I said my goodbyes and stepped out into the cool night air, award in hand, mind churning with possibilities. The breaking point had revealed something unexpected. It wasn't just Nathan who had underestimated me. Perhaps I had underestimated myself as well, not my capabilities, but my capacity to rise above old wounds, to consider options beyond simple revenge or validation. Whatever came next, One thing was certain. The power dynamic had shifted irrevocably. Nathan knew it. My father would soon know it. And most importantly, I knew it too. The stupid sister wasn't so stupid after all. A week after the Westridge Business Excellence Awards, I sat in my office at Pinnacle reviewing quarterly projections when my assistant knocked on the door. "Ms. Chen, your father is here to see you." The words hit me like a physical blow. In all the scenarios I'd imagined following my conversation with Nathan, my father coming to Pinnacle hadn't been one of them. "Did he have an appointment?" I asked, buying time to compose myself. "No, but he says it's important. Family business." She hesitated. "Should I ask him to come back another time?" I took a deep breath, straightening the papers on my desk. "No, send him in." As I waited for him to enter, I glanced around my office, the sleek modern furniture, the awards displayed on the credenza, the floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the Westridge skyline. This was my territory, my creation. Whatever Robert Chen wanted, he would be meeting me as an equal, not as a daughter seeking approval. The door opened, and there he stood, smaller somehow than in my memory, more fragile. His expensive suit hung a bit loose on his frame, and new lines etched his face. But his eyes, those sharp, assessing eyes that had intimidated business rivals for decades, were unchanged. "Allison," he said, his voice formal. "Dad," I replied, equally formal. "This is unexpected." He remained near the door, taking in the office with an appraising glance that revealed nothing of his thoughts. "You've done well for yourself." Coming from anyone else, it would have been a simple observation. Coming from Robert Chen, it was loaded with complexities, grudging admiration mixed with something like regret. "Thank you," I said. "Please, sit down." He crossed to the visitor's chair and lowered himself carefully, placing a leather portfolio on his lap. For a moment, we simply regarded each other across the desk, father and daughter, founder and founder, past and future. "I imagine Nathan told you about my visit," he said finally. "He mentioned that Horizon is having difficulties," I confirmed, keeping my voice neutral. "Difficulties?" My father gave a short, humorless laugh. "That's one way to put it. We're hemorrhaging clients, struggling to compete in a market that suddenly demands AI solutions we don't have the infrastructure to provide." He fixed me with his direct gaze. "Solutions you offered us 2 years ago." The acknowledgement that I had been right when they had dismissed me hung in the air between us. I waited, sensing there was more. "I didn't listen," he continued, each word seemingly difficult for him. Neither did Nathan. We were short-sighted. Coming from Robert Chen, this was as close to an apology as I was likely to get. Part of me wanted to savor the moment, to make him acknowledge exactly what that short-sightedness had cost me personally. But the businesswoman I'd become recognized that dwelling on past injuries wouldn't serve either of us now. "The market shifted," I said simply. "Horizon didn't." He nodded, his expression grim. 25 years of building something from nothing, and now it could all disappear in months. He opened the portfolio and removed several documents. "Contech Industries has made an offer to acquire Horizon." He slid the papers across the desk. I glanced at them. The acquisition terms were exactly what Nathan had feared. Contech would retain the Horizon name and client list, but would restructure operations entirely. Most employees would be terminated. The Chen family would receive a respectable but not generous payout. "They're vultures," my father said bluntly, "but they're the only serious offer we've received." I looked up from the documents. "Why are you showing me this?" His eyes held mine steadily. "Because I need your help, Allison." Those words, from the man who had never needed help from anyone, least of all his creative, impractical daughter, struck me speechless. I waited for him to continue. "Pinnacle Innovations has what Horizon lacks," he said. AI expertise, forward thinking, leadership momentum in the market. If we were to combine resources, you want to merge, I interrupted, finally understanding his presence in my office. I want to save my company, he corrected, and yours is the only lifeline available. I leaned back in my chair, processing this extraordinary reversal. After years of dismissing my ideas, my father was now suggesting that those same ideas could save Horizon. The irony was almost too perfect. What would this merger look like? I asked, professional curiosity overriding personal history. Who would lead the combined company? You would, he said without hesitation. I stared at him, certain I had misheard. Excuse me? You would lead, he repeated. With Nathan in a senior position of your choosing, I would step into an advisory role until retirement. The proposal was so unexpected that I struggled to formulate a response. My father, who had passed over me for his son without a second thought, was now proposing to put me in charge of both companies. What does Nathan think of this arrangement? I asked, my voice betraying more emotion than I intended. My father's expression tightened. He will accept it. Did he suggest it? No, I did. I stood up, needing to move, to process this revelation. I walked to the window, looking out at the city below as I gathered my thoughts. Why now? I asked finally, turning back to face him. Why not 2 years ago, when I proposed AI integration at Horizon? Why not a year ago, when Pinnacle started gaining traction? Why wait until Horizon is on the brink of collapse to recognize what I bring to the table? My father's shoulders sagged slightly, the weight of his decisions visible in his posture. Because I was wrong, he said simply. Pride, tradition, stubbornness, call it what you will. I believed the way I'd built the business was the only way forward. I couldn't see that the world was changing around us. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. And because I underestimated you, Allison, I saw your creativity, your different way of thinking, as liabilities rather than strengths. I was wrong about that too. The admission, so long desired, so long denied, should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt hollow, coming only when circumstances forced his hand. Nathan called me the stupid sister, I said quietly. Right. Before I left Horizon. Did you know that? Pain flashed across my father's face. No, I didn't. He said marketing was cute, but that real business happens in finance. I returned to my desk, meeting my father's gaze directly. Was that what you thought too? He hesitated too long before answering. I valued different skills then. I was traditional in my thinking. Traditional, I repeated. A polite way of saying you didn't think a daughter could lead your company. He didn't deny it. The past can't be changed, Allison. I'm here to talk about the future. I considered him, this proud man humbled by circumstance, seeking help from the daughter he had overlooked. It would be so easy to refuse, to savor the karmic justice of watching Horizon crumble while Pinnacle soared. Part of me wanted exactly that. But another part, the visionary who had seen what others couldn't, recognized an opportunity beyond personal vindication. Horizon had infrastructure, client relationships, and talent that could accelerate Pinnacle's growth. A strategic merger, properly executed, could benefit both companies. I'll need to review Horizon's financials, I said, my tone shifting from personal to professional. Complete access to all records, client accounts, contractual obligations, and I'll want to speak with key staff members personally to assess who should remain in a combined organization. Hope flickered in my father's eyes. You'll consider it then? I'll evaluate it, I clarified. As a business decision, not a family one. I'll need to consult with my board of advisors, particularly Victoria Wallace. At the mention of Victoria, my father frowned slightly. Victoria had been one of the first major clients to leave Horizon for Pinnacle. "Of course," he said stiffly. "If I decide to proceed," I continued, "the merged company would operate under the Pinnacle brand, with Horizon becoming a division focused on established service lines while we transition clients to our AI-enhanced offerings. Governance would be reconstituted, with me as CEO and final decision-maker." Each point landed like a stone between us. I was establishing terms, not as a daughter seeking reconciliation, but as a CEO protecting her company's interests. "Those terms are acceptable," my father said after a long moment. "And Nathan?" I pressed. "You say he'll accept my leadership. I find that hard to believe." My father's expression hardened. "Nathan understands the situation. He knows Horizon won't survive without this merger. Understanding and accepting are different things," I pointed out. "I won't walk into a situation where he's undermining me from the start." "He won't," my father insisted. "Things have changed, Allison. Nathan has changed." I raised an eyebrow skeptically. "People don't change that fundamentally, Dad. Especially not people like Nathan." My father leaned forward, his gaze intense. "Your brother is many things, but he's not a fool. He's watched you build Pinnacle from nothing while Horizon faltered under his leadership. That's not an easy pill to swallow for someone like him." He paused. "He respects what you've accomplished, even if he can't fully admit it yet." I remained unconvinced. "I'll need to hear that from him directly. Then meet with us," my father proposed. "Dinner at the house Thursday evening. We can discuss the merger conceptually, address family dynamics, and then proceed to formal business discussions if you're amenable." The thought of returning to the family home, the site of so many dinners where my ideas had been politely dismissed, made me hesitate. But if this merger was to have any chance of success, the personal issues needed to be addressed head-on. "Fine," I agreed. "Thursday, at 7. But Dad—" I fixed him with a firm look. "This isn't a reconciliation dinner. It's a preliminary business discussion. If I don't like what I hear, there won't be a merger." He nodded, accepting my terms. As he stood to leave, he paused, looking at the award from the Business Excellence ceremony displayed on my credenza. "Your speech that night," he said quietly. "About innovation building on foundations while having the courage to adapt. That was insightful." I smiled slightly. "I've been saying the same thing for years, Dad. You just weren't listening." Something like sadness crossed his face. "No, I wasn't." He moved toward the door, then turned back. "I am now." After he left, I sat alone in my office trying to process what had just happened. My father, Robert Chen, who had built Horizon, solutions through sheer force of will and unshakable confidence, had come to me for help. He had admitted he was wrong. He had offered me leadership of both companies. It should have felt like vindication. Instead, it felt complicated, a mixture of long-desired recognition and suspicion about its timing. Would he have ever acknowledged my abilities if Horizon weren't failing? Would Nathan ever truly accept my leadership? Or would he undermine me at every opportunity? I picked up my phone and called Victoria. "Robert Chen just left my office," I said when she answered. "He wants to merge Horizon with Pinnacle, with me as CEO." Victoria was silent for a moment. "Well," she said finally, "that's quite the turnaround. He says they're considering an offer from Contech otherwise. It's a gutting operation. They'd basically dismantle Horizon and fire most of the staff." "And you're considering the merger?" Victoria's tone was careful, neutral. "I'm evaluating it," I replied, "strictly as a business decision." "Allison," she said gently, "nothing about this situation is strictly business. This is your family, your history. The man who overlooked you for years is now asking for your help. That complicates things significantly." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I know. Trust me. I know. If you're seriously considering this, I'd recommend bringing in an independent third party to conduct a thorough analysis of Horizon's financials and operations. Someone without emotional ties to either company. That's a good idea, I agreed. And Allison? Victoria's voice softened. Remember that whatever you decide, you're making the decision from a position of strength. That's something they never gave you before. After hanging up, I spent hours reviewing Pinnacle's projections, trying to imagine how a merger with Horizon might affect our trajectory. The business case had merits. Combining Pinnacle's innovative AI solutions with Horizon's established client base and infrastructure could accelerate our growth significantly. But the personal complications were undeniable. By Thursday evening, I had conducted preliminary due diligence, consulted with Victoria and my other advisors, and prepared a list of non-negotiable terms for any potential merger. I had also steeled myself emotionally for returning to my childhood, home for the first family dinner in nearly 2 years. As I pulled into the familiar driveway of the Victorian house in suburban Westridge, memories washed over me. So many dinners where my ideas were politely dismissed, where Nathan received the lion's share of attention and approval, where I constantly felt the need to prove my worth. I squared my shoulders, reminding myself that I was no longer that overlooked daughter seeking validation. I was Allison Chen, CEO of Pinnacle Innovations, award-winning entrepreneur, the woman whose vision had been proven right by the market itself. I was arriving not as a supplicant, but as a potential savior. My mother opened the door before I could knock, her face lighting up with a mixture of hope and anxiety. "Allison," she said, reaching for a hug that I returned somewhat stiffly. "It's so good to have you home." "I'm here for a business discussion, Mom," I reminded her gently as I stepped inside. Of course," she said, though her expression suggested she hoped for more. "Your father and Nathan are in the study. Dinner will be ready in about half an hour." The study, my father's inner sanctum, where the most important Horizon decisions had always been made. It was fitting that this meeting would happen there. I found them waiting, my father behind his desk, Nathan in one of the leather chairs, opposite. Both stood when I entered. "Allison," my father greeted me with a formal nod. "Thank you for coming." Nathan's expression was harder to read, a mixture of resignation, resentment, and something that might have been respect. "Allie," he said, using my childhood nickname for the first time in years. I took the other visitor's chair, setting my portfolio on my lap, much as my father had done in my office days earlier. "Let's get to it," I said. "I've reviewed Horizon's situation based on the information Dad provided. I've consulted with my advisors. I'm prepared to discuss merger possibilities, but I have conditions." Nathan's jaw tightened, but my father nodded. "We expected as much." "Before we get into specifics," I continued, "I need to address the elephant in the room." I turned to face Nathan directly. "Dad says you'll accept my leadership in a merged company. Is that true?" Nathan's eyes flicked to our father, then back to me. "Yes," he said simply. "Why?" I pressed. "Last time we spoke at length, you called me the stupid sister. You dismissed everything I proposed for Horizon. What's changed besides Horizon's financial situation?" Nathan's face flushed, but to his credit, he didn't look away. "You proved me wrong," he said, each word seemingly difficult. "You saw where the market was going. I didn't. You built something successful from scratch. I took an established company," and Cora faltered. The admission clearly cost him, his pride visibly wounded. In another time, I might have savored his discomfort. Now, I simply needed to gauge his sincerity. "And you believe you could work under my leadership, take direction from me, support my vision publicly and privately?" He hesitated, then nodded. "I'm not going to pretend it would be easy," he admitted. "But I understand what's at stake. Horizon is Dad's legacy. It employs people who've been with us for decades. If swallowing my pride is the price of saving that, then yes, I can work under your leadership. It was the most honest thing Nathan had said to me in years. I studied him, searching for signs of the arrogance and dismissiveness that had characterized our previous interactions. They were still there beneath the surface, but tempered now by humility and forced by circumstance. "I appreciate your honesty," I said finally. "But words are easy. Actions are what matter." "What would convince you?" Nathan asked, a hint of his old impatience showing through. I considered the question carefully. A trial period, I decided. Before finalizing any merger, you would come work at Pinnacle for 3 months as a senior advisor. No executive title, no separate power base. Just you, learning our systems, understanding our approach, proving you can function as part of my team. Nathan's expression darkened. "You want me to audition?" "I want you to demonstrate that what you're saying now isn't just desperation talking," I corrected, "that you can actually adapt to a different corporate culture and leadership style." "That seems," he began hotly, but our father cut him off. "Reasonable," Robert Chen finished firmly. "It seems entirely reasonable given the history." Nathan looked from our father to me, clearly struggling with the blow to his ego. Finally, he nodded stiffly. "Fine. 3 months. With clear performance metrics and evaluation criteria," I added. "This isn't a formality, Nathan. If you can't adapt, there won't be a place for you in the merged company." My brother's expression was a storm of conflicting emotions, but he managed another nod. "Understood." My father leaned forward. "And assuming Nathan meets your expectations during this trial period, what would the merger look like?" I opened my portfolio and laid out my preliminary terms. Pinnacle would acquire Horizon in a stock transaction. Robert Chen would receive a seat on the board and a 2-year consulting contract. Key Horizon personnel would be evaluated individually for retention. The Horizon brand would be maintained for established service lines while being gradually integrated into the Pinnacle ecosystem. These terms are subject to complete due diligence, of course, I concluded. I'll need an independent analysis of Horizon's financials, client contracts, and operational capabilities. My father reviewed the document carefully. "The financial terms are less generous than I had hoped," he noted. "They reflect Horizon's current market position and the investment Pinnacle will need to make to incorporate your operations," I explained. "I'm not being punitive, Dad. I'm being realistic." He nodded slowly. "And if we accept these terms, how soon could we proceed?" The trial period with Nathan would begin immediately. Due diligence would run concurrently. If both are successful, we could close within 4 months. My father glanced at Nathan, who was studying the terms with a furrowed brow. "And the alternative is Contech," my father said grimly. "Or another buyer, if you can find one quickly," I added. "I'm not demanding you accept my terms. I'm offering a potential solution that would preserve much of what you've built while allowing it to evolve." Before either could respond, my mother appeared at the study door. "Dinner's ready," she announced, her tone deliberately cheerful, as though this were a normal family gathering rather than a high-stakes business negotiation. As we moved to the dining room, I felt a strange sense of déjà vu. How many dinners had we shared in this house with business as the primary topic of conversation? The difference now was that I was no longer the audience. I was the central player, the one whose opinion mattered most. Throughout dinner, I observed Nathan closely. He was quieter than usual, speaking only when spoken to, his eyes occasionally darting to me with expressions ranging from resentment to grudging respect. My father, too, seemed diminished somehow, the patriarch forced to reckon with his own fallibility. My mother tried valiantly to create a sense of normalcy, asking about my apartment, my friends, my life outside of work. I answered politely, but briefly, maintaining emotional distance. This wasn't a reconciliation. It was a business arrangement with personal complications. After dinner, as my mother cleared the plates, Nathan cornered me in the hallway outside the dining room. "Can we speak privately?" he asked, his tone carefully neutral. I nodded, following him onto the back porch where we'd spent countless summer evenings as children. The night air was cool, the garden illuminated by solar lights installed since my last visit. "You've thought of everything," Nathan said, gesturing vaguely toward the merger terms. "Every detail, every contingency. It's impressive." "Thank you," I said cautiously, unsure where he was going with this. He leaned against the porch railing, looking out at the garden rather than at me. "I need to know something. Allie, is this about saving Horizon or punishing me?" The question caught me off guard with its directness. "It's about creating a stronger combined company," I answered. "That's the business answer," he said, turning to face me. "I'm asking about the personal one." I considered deflecting again, but opted for honesty instead. 2 years ago, you dismissed me completely. You called me stupid. You treated everything I'd worked for as irrelevant. Did that hurt? Absolutely. Do I still think about it? Yes. I paused, gathering my thoughts. But this proposal isn't about revenge, Nathan. If it were, I'd simply let Horizon fail and watch from a distance. This is about seeing a legitimate business opportunity that happens to come with significant personal baggage. Nathan studied me, trying to gauge my sincerity. And the 3-month trial period for me? The demotion to advisor? That's purely business? It's prudent risk management, I replied evenly. You've never worked in an environment you didn't control? You've never reported to someone you previously dismissed. I need to know you can actually do it before I stake Pinnacle's future on it. He was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable in the dim porch light. Then he said something that surprised me completely. "I'm proud of you, Allie." I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. "What?" "I'm proud of you," he repeated, looking uncomfortable but determined. "What you've built with Pinnacle, it's remarkable. Your vision, your execution, your leadership. You've proven yourself in ways I never imagined possible." The words I'd longed to hear for years now felt surreal, almost hollow. "Why are you saying this now?" Nathan sighed heavily. "Because it's true, and because if we're going to have any chance of making this merger work, we need to start with honesty." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I recognized from childhood. "I was wrong about you, Allie. Completely, utterly wrong. And I'm sorry." The apology, direct, unqualified, caught me completely off guard. Nathan had never apologized to me for anything, not even when we were children. His pride had always prevented it. "The stupid sister comment," he continued when I didn't respond. "It's haunted me. Even before Horizon started struggling, I knew it was cruel. And wrong. I just couldn't bring myself to admit it." I found my voice finally. "Why did you say it?" "Because I was terrified," he admitted, surprising me again. "Your ideas for Horizon were so different from anything Dad had done, anything I understood. AI, predictive analytics, it was all foreign territory to me. So instead of acknowledging my limitations, I lashed out. I dismissed what I didn't understand." The vulnerability in his confession was so unexpected that I didn't know how to respond. This was a side of Nathan I'd never seen, reflective, humble, aware of his own failings. "Can we start over?" he asked when I remained silent. "Not as rivals, not as CEO and subordinate, but as equals with different strengths. I understand finances and client relationships in ways you don't. You understand technology and innovation in ways I don't. Together, we could build something extraordinary." His proposal was so far from what I'd expected that I struggled to process it. Nathan wasn't just accepting my leadership. He was offering a genuine partnership based on mutual respect. After years of dismissal and competition, the shift was disorienting. "Why should I trust this sudden change of heart?" I asked finally. "Because Horizon's situation has stripped away my pride," he answered simply. "Because watching you succeed while I failed has been the most humbling experience of my life. And because despite everything, we're still family. We're still the children of Robert Chen, raised to build rather than destroy." I studied my brother in the dim porch light, searching for signs of manipulation or insincerity. Instead, I saw only exhaustion, humility, and a glimmer of hope. "I'll consider it," I said finally. "But the trial period stands. 3 months at Pinnacle, proving you can adapt, before any final merger decisions." Nathan nodded, accepting the condition. "I'll start Monday?" "Monday," I confirmed. 8 a.m. sharp. And Nathan, no power moves, no undermining, no passive-aggressive comments about my leadership. 1 strike and you're out." "Understood," he said, and offered his hand, a formal, businesslike gesture that acknowledged the seriousness of our arrangement. I hesitated, then took it. His grip was firm, his eyes steady on mine. In that moment, something shifted between us. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet, but the possibility of a new beginning, of a relationship based on mutual respect rather than competition. As I drove home that night, I felt strangely unsettled. The confrontation I'd anticipated, angry words, stubborn resistance, lingering resentment, hadn't materialized. Instead, I'd found my father humbled by failure, my brother seemingly transformed by adversity. It was disorienting, like preparing for a storm only to encounter calm seas. Part of me remained suspicious. People didn't change so fundamentally overnight, especially people as proud as Nathan and my father. Was this genuine transformation, or merely desperation in the face of Horizon's impending collapse? Only time would tell. Another part of me, however, recognized the opportunity before me. Taking over Horizon, the company that had dismissed me, the legacy my father had built, would be the ultimate vindication. More than any award or business success, it would cement my vision as the path forward. The stupid sister would become the savior, the visionary who saw what they couldn't. As I pulled into my apartment building's garage, my phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "How did it go?" I stared at the screen, trying to formulate a response that captured the complexity of the evening. Finally, I typed, "They agreed to my terms. Nathan starts at Pinnacle on Monday. 3-month trial before finalizing merger." Victoria's response came quickly. "Impressive. How does it feel to have the upper hand after all this time?" I considered the question as I rode the elevator to my penthouse. How did it feel? Satisfying, certainly. Vindicating, yes. But also strange, complex, weighted with implications beyond simple victory. "Complicated," I replied finally. "I'll fill you in tomorrow." As I entered my apartment and kicked off my heels, I moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Westridge. Somewhere in that skyline of lights was the Horizon building, where I'd once been dismissed as the stupid sister with cute marketing ideas. Soon, that building and everyone in it might be under my leadership. The confrontation was over, but the real challenge was just beginning. Could Nathan truly adapt to working under my leadership? Could my father accept a diminished role in the company he'd built? Could I navigate the personal dynamics without compromising Pinnacle's success? And perhaps most importantly, could I lead this merged company based on vision and strategy, not emotion and old wounds? As I stared out at the city lights, I made a promise to myself. Whatever happened next, I would lead with the clarity and confidence that had built Pinnacle. I would make decisions based on business realities, not personal history. I would create something stronger than either Horizon or Pinnacle could be alone. The stupid sister was gone. In her place stood a CEO ready to reshape an industry, and perhaps along the way a family. Monday morning arrived with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. I'd spent the weekend preparing for Nathan's arrival at Pinnacle, setting up a modest office near, but not too near, my own, creating a comprehensive onboarding schedule, and briefing my leadership team on the situation. Remember, I told them during our early morning huddle, this is a trial period. Nathan is here to learn our systems and prove he can adapt to our culture. He doesn't have executive authority, regardless of his former title at Horizon. Taylor, who had followed me from Horizon and now served as Pinnacle's chief operating officer, looked particularly skeptical. And you really think he can change? The Nathan I remember was resistant to new ideas, to put it mildly. People can surprise you, I replied, though I shared Taylor's doubts. In any case, this arrangement gives us access to Horizon's client relationships and institutional knowledge without committing to a full merger. It's a calculated risk with significant potential upside. Victoria, dialing in remotely, added her perspective. Just make sure your team understands this. Isn't a coronation. Nathan needs to earn his place at Pinnacle, regardless of his family connection to you. I nodded, grateful for her straightforward advice. Absolutely. No special treatment, no shortcuts. He succeeds or fails on merit alone. At precisely 8 a.m., my assistant escorted Nathan into the Pinnacle offices. He was impeccably dressed as always, but something about his demeanor had changed. The swagger that had once characterized his movements was muted, replaced by a more measured, observant bearing. "Welcome to Pinnacle," I greeted him formally, extending my hand as I had on the porch nights before. "Thank you for the opportunity," he replied, matching my professional tone. His eyes took in the open concept office space, the collaborative workstations, the energy of a company in growth mode. "It's impressive, Allie." "Allison," I corrected gently. "At work, I prefer Allison." He nodded, accepting the boundary. "Of course, Allison." I handed him a folder containing his orientation schedule, security badge, and company policies. "You'll start with our standard onboarding process, company history, values, organizational structure. Then you'll spend time with each department head learning their operations. By week 3, you'll begin shadowing client meetings. No direct client contact until I've approved it." If my detailed management of his time bothered him, Nathan didn't. "Show it." "Understood." "Your first meeting is with HR in 15 minutes, I continued. "Then you'll join our morning status meeting at 9. Taylor will show you to your office." As Taylor led Nathan away, I caught the questioning look she threw over her shoulder. This compliant, deferential version of my brother was so at odds with the arrogant executive who had dismissed me as the stupid sister that even I found it disconcerting. The first week passed with surprising smoothness. Nathan attended every scheduled meeting, asked thoughtful questions, and made no attempts to assert authority beyond his assigned role. He arrived early, stayed late, and took comprehensive notes on Pinnacle's operations. In our brief interactions, he remained professional and respectful, addressing me as Allison in front of others and deferring to my decisions without comment. It was unsettling. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop," I confessed to Victoria over lunch at the end of that first week. This cooperative, humble version of Nathan doesn't match any behavior pattern I've seen from him in 30 years. Victoria considered this as she speared a piece of salmon. "People can change, Allison, especially when their fundamental assumptions are challenged." "But this dramatically? This quickly?" "Think about it from his perspective," she suggested. For years, Nathan believed in a particular approach to business, his father's approach. He assumed his marketing-focused sister with her AI dreams was misguided at best. Then you built Pinnacle, proved your vision was correct, and now his company is failing while yours thrives. That's a profound repudiation of everything he believed. I nodded slowly. So you think this change is genuine? I think it could be, Victoria said carefully. But I also think you're right to proceed with caution. The real test will come when he disagrees with one of your decisions. That's when you'll see if this new Nathan is real or just a performance. That test came sooner than I expected. During Nathan's third week at Pinnacle, I called him into a strategy session regarding global tech, a major prospect that had previously been a Horizon client. Our team had developed a comprehensive AI solution to address their supply chain challenges. Exactly the kind of innovative approach Horizon had been unwilling to offer. Global Tech is meeting with us next Tuesday, I explained to the team. They're intrigued by our predictive analytics platform, but concerned about integration with their legacy systems. We need to address those concerns head-on. As the discussion progressed, I noticed Nathan growing increasingly uncomfortable, shifting in his seat and occasionally opening his mouth as if to speak before thinking better of it. Finally, during a pause in the conversation, I decided to bring him in. Nathan, you worked directly with Global Tech at Horizon. Any insights that might be helpful? He straightened, clearly surprised at being addressed. Actually, yes. He hesitated, glancing around the table. May I speak frankly? I nodded, curious to see what he would say. The approach you're outlining is technically impressive, he began carefully. But it doesn't address Global Tech's organizational culture. Their CIO, Marcus Evans, is extremely risk-averse. He's been burned by failed implementations before. And their procurement team is notoriously difficult. They'll haggle over every line item regardless of the overall value proposition. He paused, gauging the room's reaction before continuing. The solution you're proposing is comprehensive. Maybe too comprehensive for their first step into AI. They need to see quick wins to build internal buy-in, and they need a pricing structure that gives their procurement team wins to report up the chain. The room fell silent. Nathan's assessment was insightful, demonstrating a nuanced understanding of Global Tech's internal dynamics that our team lacked. It was also a direct criticism of our approach. Exactly the kind of moment Victoria had suggested would reveal the true Nathan. That's valuable perspective, I said after a moment. How would you suggest we adjust our approach? Relief flashed across Nathan's face, quickly replaced by focused consideration. I'd recommend phasing the implementation, starting with one high-visibility area where we can demonstrate clear ROI within 90 days. Procurement analytics would be ideal. Their margin pressures are intense right now. He warmed to the topic, becoming more animated. I'd also restructure the pricing to include some visible discounts on upfront costs, while maintaining the overall contract value through the service components. It gives their procurement team the wins they need without undercutting our value. I studied him as he spoke, noting the absence of the condescending tone that had once characterized his business insights. He wasn't speaking as the former, CEO of Horizon, or as my older brother, but as a colleague offering valuable expertise. Those are excellent suggestions, I said finally. Let's rework the proposal along those lines. Nathan, since you have the relationship with Marcus, would you be willing to help Taylor prepare for this meeting? Surprise and gratification flickered across his face. Of course, happy to help. After the meeting, Nathan lingered behind as others filed out. Thank you, he said quietly when we were alone. For listening. For not dismissing my input. The irony wasn't lost on either of us, that I, once dismissed as the stupid sister, was now in a position to dismiss or validate his contributions. Your insights were valuable, I said simply. That's how Pinnacle operates, the best ideas. Win, regardless of who they come from. It's different, he admitted. At Horizon, especially lately, decisions came from the top down. Dad's way, then my way. We rarely invited challenge from the team. And how did that work out? I couldn't resist asking. A rueful smile crossed his face. Point taken. The Global Tech meeting proved to be a turning point. With Nathan's insights incorporated, our proposal addressed not just their technical requirements, but their organizational constraints as well. When Marcus Evans, their CIO, expressed surprise at seeing Nathan with the Pinnacle team, Nathan smoothly explained the potential merger, emphasizing the combined strengths of both companies under my leadership. Allison has built something remarkable with Pinnacle, he told Marcus, genuine respect in his voice. The AI expertise here is unparalleled. Combined with Horizon's established service approach, we can offer clients the best of both worlds. I found myself watching Nathan as much as Marcus during that meeting, still half expecting to see signs of the old resentment or condescension. Instead, I saw someone fully committed to our success, leveraging his relationships and expertise to advance Pinnacle's interests rather than his own. When Global Tech signed with us the following week, a contract worth twice our initial projections, I made a point of acknowledging Nathan's contribution during our company-wide announcement. This win represents the best of Pinnacle's approach, I told the team. Innovative technology combined with deep client understanding. I want to particularly recognize Nathan Chen's insights, which were instrumental in tailoring our solution to Global Tech's specific needs. The surprise on Nathan's face at the public acknowledgement was genuine, as was the tentative smile that followed. For perhaps the first time in our adult lives, we had functioned as true collaborators rather than rivals. That evening, as I worked late in my office, Nathan knocked on my open door. "Got a minute?" he asked. I nodded, gesturing to the visitor's chair. "The Global Tech contract is a significant win for us. Your contribution made a real difference." "Thank you for saying that," he said, settling into the chair. "But that's not why I wanted to talk." I raised an eyebrow questioningly. "I've been here 3 weeks now," he began. "Observing, learning, trying to understand what makes Pinnacle different from Horizon. And I think I'm starting to see it." "And what is it?" I asked, genuinely curious about his perspective. "Innovation isn't just a buzzword here," he said thoughtfully. "It's built into every process, every client interaction. At Horizon, we talked about innovation, but we were really selling stability. We were afraid to push clients out of their comfort zones, even when we knew they needed to evolve." I nodded, encouraging him to continue. "But there's something else too," he added. "The culture here. People aren't afraid to speak up, to challenge ideas. Taylor questioned your approach in the strategy meeting yesterday, and you thanked her for it. At Horizon, that kind of challenge would have been seen as insubordination." "Diverse perspectives lead to better solutions," I said. "That's not just a platitude at Pinnacle, it's how we operate." Nathan was quiet for a moment, seemingly gathering his thoughts. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said when you left Horizon, about Dad and me being too arrogant to see the world changing around us." He met my eyes directly. "You were right." The admission hung in the air between us. I waited, sensing he had more to say. "I've spent 3 weeks watching how you lead, how you make decisions, how you've built this company," he continued. "And I keep thinking about all the opportunities I missed at Horizon because I was too proud to listen to different perspectives, too proud to listen to you." The vulnerability in his voice was striking. This wasn't the performative humility of someone trying to save his job. This was genuine reflection from someone confronting his own limitations. "It's not too late to learn," I said finally. "That's why you're here." "Is it?" he asked, a hint of his old directness returning. "Is that really why I'm here, Allie? For a second chance? Or am I just a means to acquire Horizon's client relationships before you discard me?" The question caught me off guard with its bluntness. For weeks, Nathan had been carefully deferential, avoiding any conversation that might create conflict. Now he was directly challenging my intentions. "That's a fair question," I acknowledged after a moment. When Dad first proposed the merger, I saw it primarily as a business opportunity. Your 3-month trial period was meant to assess whether you could adapt to Pinnacle's culture, yes, but also whether having you in the merged company would be an asset or a liability. I paused, considering how much to reveal. I didn't trust that your sudden respect for my leadership was genuine. After years of dismissal, it seemed more likely that you were saying whatever necessary to save Horizon. Nathan nodded slowly. And now? Now I'm reassessing, I admitted. Your contributions have been valuable. Your insights with Global Tech were spot on. You've been respectful of our processes and curious about our approach. That suggests you might actually be able to add value in a merged company, not just as a conduit to Horizon's client relationships, but as a leader in your own right. Relief flickered across his face. Thank you for being honest, and for giving me a genuine opportunity to prove myself. Don't thank me yet, I cautioned. We're only halfway through your trial period. There's still the question of what role you would play in a merged company. He leaned forward, suddenly energized. Actually, I've been thinking about that. With your permission, I'd like to prepare a proposal, not just for my role, but for how the integration of Horizon into Pinnacle could work most effectively. The request surprised me. You want to plan your own integration? I want to show you that I understand both companies' strengths and how they could complement each other, he clarified. No one knows Horizon's operations better than I do. And after 3 weeks here, I'm starting to understand Pinnacle's approach as well. I considered his request, weighing potential risks against benefits. All right, I agreed finally. Prepare your proposal. We'll review it together next week. After he left, I sat in my office, turning our conversation over in my mind. Was Nathan's transformation genuine? The evidence increasingly suggested it might be. And if so, what did that mean for our future working relationship? For our personal relationship as siblings? The following week brought a new complication. My father requested a meeting to discuss the merger progress, inviting me to lunch at Westridge's most prestigious restaurant, a neutral setting designed to put us on equal footing. Nathan seems to be adapting well at Pinnacle, he observed after we'd ordered. He speaks highly of your operation, your leadership. He's making a genuine effort, I acknowledged. His insights have already contributed to a significant client. Win. My father nodded, a hint of pride crossing his face. He was always capable when he applied himself properly. He paused, studying me. And the due diligence on Horizon? How is that progressing? The independent analysis is nearly complete, I replied. Initial findings suggest the core business remains sound despite recent client losses. Your operational infrastructure is strong. It's the service offerings that have fallen behind market demands. As you predicted years ago, he admitted, with a small, rueful smile. If we had listened then. We can't change the past, I said, echoing his words from our earlier conversation in my office. We can only decide what happens next. He nodded, taking a sip of his water. And what do you see happening next, Allison? Assuming Nathan completes his trial period successfully and the due diligence confirms Horizon's viability. A controlled integration, I said. Pinnacle's innovation combined with Horizon's established client relationships and operational structure, the best of both approaches. Under your leadership, he noted. Yes, I confirmed, watching for signs of resentment or reluctance. There were none. You've earned it, he said simply. I was wrong to overlook you, to favor Nathan based on traditional thinking. He met my eyes directly. I hope you know that my pride in what you've accomplished is genuine, regardless of what happens with the merger. The acknowledgement, so long desired, so long denied, still felt bittersweet coming only after Horizon's struggles had forced his hand. but there was sincerity in his eyes that couldn't be manufactured. "Thank you," I said finally. "That means something to me." "There's one other matter we should discuss," he continued, his tone shifting to something more cautious. "Your mother is hosting a family dinner this weekend, a celebration of sorts for your recent industry award and Nathan's new position at Pinnacle. She'd very much like you to attend." I hesitated. The business discussions had been manageable precisely because they remained professional, focused on merger logistics rather than family dynamics. A family dinner would inevitably blur those lines. "This isn't just a business arrangement, Allison," my father said softly, reading my hesitation. "It's also a family trying to heal old wounds. Your mother misses you. So do I." The admission, so uncharacteristic from the stoic Robert Chen, caught me off guard. For a moment, I glimpsed the vulnerability beneath the CEO facade, the father who genuinely wanted reconciliation with his daughter. "I'll consider it," I said finally. "I can't promise more than that right now." He nodded, accepting my boundary. "That's all we ask." The conversation shifted to safer territory: market trends, industry gossip, the upcoming tech conference in Singapore. By the time lunch concluded, I found myself more conflicted than ever about the merger and what it might mean for our family dynamics. Back at Pinnacle, I found Nathan waiting in my office, a thick folder in his hands. "Your proposal?" I guessed. He nodded, a mixture of nervousness and excitement evident in his bearing. "I've been working on it nights and weekends. It's comprehensive: operational integration, staffing recommendations, client transition strategies." I took the folder, noting its weight. "This is thorough." "I wanted to demonstrate that I'm taking this seriously," he said, "that I understand what a merged company could be under your leadership." I set the folder on my desk. "I'll review it carefully, but Nathan," I paused, choosing my words with care. "Dad mentioned a family dinner this weekend. Did you know about that?" His expression shifted to something apologetic. "Mom mentioned it. I told her it might be too soon, that we should focus on the business aspects first. But you know Mom, once she gets an idea." I did know. Margaret Chen was a formidable force when she set her mind to something, her gentle demeanor masking an iron will that had supported my father through decades of business challenges. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that," I admitted. "The business discussions are one thing, family reconciliation is more complicated." Nathan nodded, understanding in his eyes. "For what it's worth, I think Mom just wants her family together again. She doesn't expect everything to be magically resolved. But I understand if you're not ready." His empathy, so different from the dismissive brother I'd known, still felt strange, almost disconcerting. "I'll think about it," I said, echoing my response to our father. Over the next few days, I immersed myself in Nathan's integration proposal, impressed despite myself by its thoroughness and insight. He had identified operational synergies I'd overlooked, suggested staffing structures that maximized strengths from both companies, and outlined a client transition approach that minimized disruption while accelerating AI adoption. Most surprising was his recommendation for his own role, Chief Client Officer, focusing on relationship management and business development rather than corporate strategy or operations. It was a significant step down from CEO, but one that played to his strengths while acknowledging mine. "This is impressive," I told him when we met to discuss the proposal. "You've clearly put significant thought into how this integration could work." "I've had a lot of time to think about it," he replied. "Watching Pinnacle's operations, comparing them to Horizon's, it's been illuminating. We were so focused on maintaining what worked in the past that we couldn't see the future. You built Pinnacle around that future." The acknowledgement, my vision validated by the brother who had once dismissed it, felt like the closing of a circle that had begun the day he called me the stupid sister. There's one aspect of your proposal we should discuss further, I said, turning to a specific page. You've suggested keeping most of Horizon's operational staff but transitioning away from nearly all the executive team except yourself. That's going to create significant resistance. Nathan nodded grimly. I know. But most of Horizon's executive team shares the same blind spots Dad and I had. They're wedded to traditional approaches, resistant to the kind of innovation Pinnacle represents. Keeping them would create constant friction during integration. It would also mean asking you to manage some difficult conversations with longtime colleagues, I pointed out. People you've worked with for years. Yes, he acknowledged. And I'm prepared to do that. It's part of taking responsibility for where Horizon ended up, for the culture I perpetuated as CEO. His willingness to shoulder that burden, to be the bearer of difficult news to people he'd worked alongside for years, spoke volumes about his commitment to making the merger work. This wasn't the Nathan who had shirked difficult conversations, who had delegated unpleasant tasks to others. This was someone taking ownership of his decisions and their consequences. I'll take your recommendations under serious consideration, I said. The independent analysis of Horizon will be complete by end of week. Assuming it confirms what we've already seen, we can begin formal merger discussions. Relief crossed his face. Thank you, Allison, for giving me this chance, for considering the merger. I know it can't have been easy given our history. It wasn't, I acknowledged candidly. And we're not done yet. There's still the question of the family dinner this weekend. Nathan shifted in his seat, clearly uncertain how to respond. Mom really wants you there, he said finally, but everyone understands if you're not ready. I studied him, trying to separate the business considerations from the personal ones. Nathan had proven himself valuable at Pinnacle, demonstrating both expertise and a willingness to adapt. The merger made business sense for both companies. But the personal reconciliation, with Nathan, with my father, with the family dynamics, that had shaped and sometimes limited me, that was more complicated. Would you go, if you were me? I asked suddenly. If the situations were reversed? He considered the question seriously, not rushing to answer. Honestly? I don't know, I'd like to think I would, but the way I treated you, the things, I said. He shook his head. You have every right to keep this strictly business. His honesty was refreshing. No platitudes, no pressure, just an acknowledgement of the complexity of our situation. And yet you're hoping I'll come. I noted. Yes, he admitted. Not just for Mom's sake, for mine too. Because despite everything, we're still family. And because I'm genuinely proud of what you've built, Allie. I'd like a chance to tell you that somewhere other than a conference room. The use of my childhood nickname, spoken with genuine affection rather than condescension, stirred something I'd thought long buried. A memory of a time before business competition had complicated our relationship, when Nathan had been my big brother and I his admiring little sister. I'll be there, I decided suddenly. But Nathan, I'm not promising some magical family reconciliation. There's still a lot of history between us, a lot of hurt. That doesn't disappear overnight. I know, he said, relief evident in his voice. No one's expecting perfection. Just a start. A start. After years of distance and resentment, of proving myself while carrying the weight of their dismissal, could I really consider rebuilding these relationships? Was I ready to move beyond professional collaboration to personal reconciliation? As Nathan left my office, I realized the answer wasn't clear even to me. The merger made business sense. Pinnacle's innovation combined with Horizon's established infrastructure could create something greater than either company alone. But the family healing? That was far more complicated, with no clear ROI, no metrics, to evaluate success. Saturday evening arrived too quickly. As I drove to my parents' house for the first family dinner in nearly 2 years, I found myself rehearsing responses to potential comments, preparing defenses against old patterns. It was exhausting to realize how much emotional armor I still carried from years of being the overlooked daughter, the stupid sister with impractical ideas. My mother opened the door before I could knock, enveloping me in a hug that smelled of her familiar perfume and the spices from whatever she'd been cooking. "Allison," she breathed, holding me tightly. "It's so good to have you home." "It's good to see you too, Mom," I said, returning her embrace with genuine warmth. Whatever my complicated feelings toward my father and brother, my mother had always been my quiet advocate, even when she hadn't fully understood my choices. The house looked much the same. The familiar furniture, the family photos along the staircase, the subtle elegance that had characterized our home throughout my childhood. And yet I entered not as the daughter seeking approval, but as the successful entrepreneur whose validation they now sought. The shift in dynamics was palpable. In the living room, my father rose from his armchair, a tentative smile on his face. "Allison, thank you for coming." Nathan, standing by the fireplace, nodded in greeting, his expression a mixture of hope and caution. "Allie." For a moment, we all simply stood there, the weight of shared history and recent changes hanging in the air between us. Then my mother broke the tension with a clap of her hands. "Dinner's almost ready. Nathan, help your sister with her coat. Robert, pour the wine." Just like that, we fell into the familiar rhythm of family dinner, the patterns established over decades together temporarily smoothing over the complications of our current situation. As we gathered around the dining table, I found myself watching my family with new eyes, not just as the people who had shaped me through both support and dismissal, but as individuals navigating their own changing identities and relationships. My father, less the imposing CEO and more a man contemplating his legacy as retirement approached. My mother, her quiet strength more evident now that I understood the business world she had supported my father in navigating. And Nathan, perhaps the most transformed of all, showing glimpses of the brother he might have been, had competition and traditional expectations not warped our relationship. "A toast," my father said, raising his glass once we were all seated. "To new beginnings. To Pinnacle's success. And to family finding its way forward together." As we clinked glasses, I met Nathan's eyes across the table. In them, I saw not the dismissive brother who had once called me the stupid sister, but someone humbled by failure, enlightened by exposure to different perspectives, and genuinely proud of what I had built. The merger was still taking shape, its success not yet guaranteed. The family healing had only just begun, with years of patterns to unravel and new dynamics to establish. But in that moment, I allowed myself to imagine a future where both might succeed, where Pinnacle and Horizon could become something greater together, and where the Chen family might finally recognize and celebrate all its members' strengths. The stupid sister was long gone. In her place sat a visionary CEO ready to lead both companies into the future, and perhaps, along the way, to rebuild a family united by respect rather than divided by competition. The final month of Nathan's trial period at Pinnacle brought unexpected challenges. As news of our potential merger leaked to the industry press, competitors began aggressive moves to poach both companies' clients. Contech Industries, seeing their acquisition opportunity slipping away, launched what could only be described as a smear campaign, suggesting that Horizon's financial troubles were worse than reported, and that Pinnacle was making a dangerous gamble. "They're circling like vultures," Nathan observed during our emergency strategy meeting, calling every Horizon client, spreading rumors about service disruptions after the merger. I nodded grimly. "They're doing the same with our clients, claiming our focus will shift away from innovation to shore up Horizon's traditional services." The leadership teams from both companies, now working closely together as the merger took shape, gathered around the conference table in Pinnacle's offices. The independent financial analysis had confirmed Horizon's viability despite recent losses, and formal merger discussions were well underway. But this external threat demanded immediate response. "We need to get ahead of this," Taylor suggested. "Joint communication to all clients, transparent about the merger benefits, specific about how service will improve rather than decline." "Agreed," said Eric Thompson, who had surprised everyone by becoming one of the strongest advocates for the merger once Nathan brought him into discussions. "But we need more than just reassurance. We need to demonstrate immediate value from the combined expertise." All eyes turned to me. These moments, crisis points requiring decisive leadership, had become increasingly common as we navigated the complex merger process. Each time, I felt the weight of both companies' futures resting on my decisions. "Here's what we'll do," I said after a moment's consideration. "First, Nathan and I will personally contact our top 20 clients at each company, not through account. Managers, direct CEO communication." Heads nodded around the table. Nathan was taking notes, a habit he'd developed during his weeks at Pinnacle. "Second, we'll accelerate the rollout of our combined service offerings, the AI-enhanced analytics platform we've been developing for post-merger release. Let's make it available to select clients immediately as a preview of what's coming. That's at least 6 weeks ahead of schedule," our CTO pointed out, concern evident in his voice. "Then we work overtime to make it happen," I replied firmly. "We need to show concrete benefits from this merger, not just promise them." "Third," I continued, "Nathan and I will conduct a joint industry webinar next week, directly addressing the merger, the vision for the combined company, and how it benefits clients. Complete transparency, no corporate doublespeak." Nathan looked up from his notes. "That's aggressive," he observed, "but exactly what's needed. Contech is exploiting uncertainty. We eliminate that uncertainty by being completely open about our plans." "Can we be ready that quickly?" Eric asked. "We have to be," I replied. "Otherwise, we'll be playing defense against these rumors for months." The team dispersed with clear action items, energized despite the challenge ahead. As people filed out, Nathan remained behind, a thoughtful expression on his face. "What?" I asked, gathering my materials. "I was just thinking about how differently this would have played out at Horizon," he said. "Dad would have retreated into secrecy, issued some vague statement about business as usual, and hoped the rumors died down on their own." "And you?" I asked. "What would CEO Nathan have done 6 months ago?" He considered the question seriously. "Probably something similar, with more aggression toward Contech. I would have made it about corporate rivalry rather than client benefits." He shook his head ruefully. "And it would have failed miserably." "You've changed," I observed. "I've learned," he corrected. "From you, from Pinnacle's approach, from my own failures at Horizon. The question is whether I've learned enough to be genuinely valuable in the merged company." The vulnerability in his question, asked just days before his trial period concluded, struck me. The arrogant brother, who had dismissed me as the stupid sister, was truly gone, replaced by someone capable of honest self-assessment and growth. "You have," I assured him. "Your insights on client relationships have been invaluable. Your proposal for the integration is the blueprint we're following. And you've adapted to Pinnacle's culture faster than I honestly expected." Relief crossed his face. "So the chief client officer role is yours if you want it," I confirmed. "The formal offer letter is being prepared. I was going to present it at the end of your trial period, but given current circumstances—" "I want it," he said immediately, then caught himself with a small smile. "Though I suppose I should review the details first." "Probably wise," I agreed, returning his smile. The next week was a whirlwind of activity. Personal calls to key clients, rushed development of our preview platform, preparation for the webinar that would publicly unveil our merged vision. Nathan and I worked side by side through long days and late nights, our complementary skills creating a rhythm neither of us could have managed alone. "You handle the innovation messaging," he suggested as we outlined the webinar content. "That's your strength, the vision that made Pinnacle successful. I'll cover the client transition aspects, the practical, how this works details." "Good thinking," I agreed, noting how easily we'd fallen into collaborative planning rather than competitive positioning. "We should also address the elephant in the room directly, that we're siblings with a complicated history who are now partnering to lead this company forward." Nathan hesitated. "How much of that history do we share?" "Publicly. Not the details," I clarified, "but the overall arc, that you initially didn't see the potential in AI integration, that I left to found Pinnacle, and that market realities brought us back together with a shared vision. It humanizes the merger, makes it about growth and learning, rather than just business strategy." He nodded slowly. "It's also the truth, though not a particularly flattering one for me. Growth rarely comes from our proudest moments," I pointed out. "It comes from recognizing our mistakes and doing better." The night before the webinar, as we finalized our presentation in my office, Nathan brought up something unexpected. "Have you told Victoria about the Chief Client Officer offer?" he asked casually. I looked up from my laptop. "Not specifically. She knows you've completed the trial period successfully and that formal offers are being prepared." "Why?" He shifted in his seat. "I was just thinking about the early days of Pinnacle, how Victoria believed in you when Dad and I didn't, how she gave you your first major client." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "She saw what we missed. I'd like to thank her properly for that." The sentiment surprised me. This acknowledgement of Victoria's role in Pinnacle's success, this desire to express gratitude rather than resentment towards someone who had helped me succeed. When he had tried to hold me back, "I'm having dinner with her tomorrow," I said. "Why don't you join us?" His eyebrows rose. "Are you sure? That's your mentor relationship. I wouldn't want to intrude." "You wouldn't be intruding," I assured him. "If we're going to lead this merged company together, Victoria needs to see that our partnership is genuine. Besides," I added with a small smile, "I think she'd appreciate hearing directly from you how wrong you were about AI integration." He laughed, the sound genuine and free of the defensive edge that had once characterized our interactions. "Gladly. I've gotten quite practiced at admitting I was wrong these past few months." The webinar the next day exceeded all expectations. Over 800 industry professionals logged in to hear our vision for the merged company, a remarkable number for a hastily arranged event. Nathan and I presented as a unified team, our different styles complementing rather than competing with each other. When we reached the portion addressing our personal history, Nathan surprised me with his candor. "Many of you know that Allison and I are siblings," he began, his tone conversational but sincere. "What you may not know is that when Allison first proposed integrating AI solutions at Horizon, I dismissed the idea completely. In fact," he continued, glancing at me with a rueful smile, "I believe my exact words were that she was just the stupid sister with big dreams." A shocked murmur rippled through the in-person audience, while the chat function of the webinar exploded with comments. "It was the most short-sighted thing I've ever said," Nathan continued, "and the most incorrect. Allison left to found Pinnacle. Innovations, built exactly what she had envisioned, and proved that AI integration wasn't just feasible, but essential for companies wanting to remain competitive in our industry." He turned to face me directly. "Meanwhile, under my leadership, Horizon clung to traditional approaches and began losing market share. It's a humbling thing to watch your little sister build something revolutionary while your own company struggles, because you were too proud to listen to different perspectives." The vulnerability in his admission, made publicly, in front of industry peers and competitors, was breathtaking. This wasn't the carefully managed corporate messaging I'd expected. This was raw honesty about failure, learning, and growth. Nathan is being characteristically hard on himself, I interjected, stepping forward. The truth is, we both brought valuable perspectives to the table. My focus on innovation needed his expertise in client relationships and operational stability. The merged company will be stronger because it combines these approaches rather than choosing between them. The rest of the webinar unfolded seamlessly, with client questions reflecting genuine interest rather than concern about the merger. By the time we concluded, the chat was filled with positive comments about our transparency, our clear vision, and even the sibling dynamic that had gone from rivalry to partnership. That was, Nathan began as we powered down the equipment, afterward. Unexpectedly effective, I finished for him. Your honesty about our history resonated more than any corporate messaging could have. It felt right, he said simply. No more facades, no more pretending I had all the answers. Just the truth. That I was wrong, I learned from it, and now, we're building something better together. That evening, when Nathan joined Victoria and me for dinner, I watched with amazement as he expressed genuine gratitude for her early support of Pinnacle. There was no defensiveness, no attempt to justify Horizon's approach, just honest acknowledgement of his own blind spots and appreciation for her vision. You saw what Robert and I missed, he told her. That the market was shifting fundamentally, not incrementally. That AI wasn't just a feature to add, but a complete reimagining of how business services could work. Victoria studied him, her expression thoughtful. People often miss disruption when it's happening, she observed, especially when they've been successful with traditional approaches. The question is whether they can adapt once the disruption becomes undeniable. Some faster than others, Nathan acknowledged with a self-deprecating smile. Allison tells me I've surprised her with how quickly I've embraced Pinnacle's approach. You have, I confirmed. Though I still have the occasional moment where I expect the old Nathan to resurface, the one who dismissed my ideas without consideration. He winced slightly at the reminder, but didn't become defensive. That's fair. Trust is rebuilt over time, not overnight. Victoria looked between us, a hint of approval in her expression. This partnership could work, she said finally, not just as a business arrangement, but as a genuine collaboration between complementary talents. The merger became official 3 months later, after intensive integration planning and careful client communication. The newly combined company, which retained the Pinnacle name but incorporated Horizon's iconic compass logo, quickly established itself as an industry leader, offering the innovative AI solutions that had made Pinnacle successful, alongside the robust client services that had been Horizon's hallmark. My father transitioned to board chairman, providing strategic guidance while fully embracing my leadership. As CEO, Nathan thrived as Chief Client Officer, his natural relationship skills enhanced rather than hindered by our new technological offerings. And most surprisingly, our sibling relationship evolved from painful rivalry to genuine partnership, built on mutual respect and complementary strengths. 6 months after the merger, at Pinnacle's annual client conference, I found myself reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought us to this point. From being dismissed as the stupid sister to leading a company twice the size of Horizon at its peak, from sibling rivalry to collaborative leadership, it was a transformation I could never have predicted. As I prepared to deliver the keynote address, Nathan appeared backstage, straightening his tie nervously. Ready for this? I asked, gesturing toward the audience of over 500 clients, partners, and industry analysts. As ready as I'll ever be, he replied, though public speaking was always more your strength than mine. Just be yourself, I advised. That's what worked at the webinar. Authenticity resonates more than polished messaging. He nodded, then hesitated. Allie, Before we go out there, I wanted to say something. The seriousness in his tone made me pause. What is it? Thank you, he said simply, for giving me a second chance, for seeing potential in me even after I failed to see it in you, for building something I now have the privilege of being part of. The sincerity in his words, so different from the dismissive brother who had once looked down on my ideas, moved me unexpectedly. You earned your place here, I replied, by learning, adapting, bringing valuable expertise to the table. This company is stronger with you than without you. He smiled, the expression free of the competitive edge that had once characterized our interactions. The stupid sister and her humbled brother, he mused. Who would have thought we'd end up here? I would have, came a voice from behind us. We turned to find our father approaching, elegant in his charcoal suit, pride evident in his expression. If I had been wiser, if I had seen clearly what each of you brought to the table, I would have known this partnership was always the strongest possibility. The admission, from the man who had once favored Nathan without question, who had dismissed my vision until circumstances forced him to reconsider, felt like the closing of a circle long left open. We got here eventually, I said, including both men in my gaze. That's what matters. As we walked onto the stage together, greeted by enthusiastic applause from the packed auditorium, I felt a sense of completion that transcended business. Success. The journey from overlooked daughter to visionary CEO had been painful, challenging, filled with moments of both vindication and difficult growth. But the destination, leading a company that truly valued innovation alongside tradition, building something greater than any of us could have created alone, made every step worthwhile. The stupid sister was gone forever. In her place stood Chen, CEO of Pinnacle Innovations, the woman whose vision had transformed not just an industry, but a family. The brother who had once dismissed her now worked alongside her, his talents, complementing rather than competing with hers. The father who had overlooked her now proudly introduced her as the leader who had saved his legacy while building her own. As I stepped to the microphone, surveying the audience eager to hear our vision for the future, I caught Nathan's eye. He nodded slightly, a gesture of respect and partnership that would have seemed impossible just a year earlier. The journey had changed us both, him from arrogant dismissal to humble collaboration, me from wounded determination to confident leadership. Welcome to the new pinnacle, I began, my voice strong and clear, where innovation meets experience, where we don't just adapt to the future, we create it. And in that moment, addressing a room full of people who now looked to me for vision and leadership, I silently thanked the brother who had once underestimated me. His dismissal had forced me to prove my worth not just to him or to my father, but most importantly to myself. The stupid sister had built something remarkable and brought her family along for the journey. The ending wasn't perfect. Family dynamics rarely are. There were still moments when old patterns threatened to resurface, when Nathan's suggestion carried echoes of his former dismissiveness, when my response held traces of lingering resentment. But with each successful collaboration, each joint decision that leveraged our different strengths, the past receded further into memory, replaced by a partnership neither of us could have imagined. Sometimes the greatest triumphs come not from defeating our adversaries, but from transforming them into allies. Sometimes the deepest wounds become the foundation for our greatest strengths. And sometimes, just sometimes, the stupid sister with big dreams becomes the visionary leader who reshapes not just an industry, but the very family that once dismissed her. You know, Nathan said one evening as we reviewed quarterly results that had exceeded even our optimistic projections, I've been thinking about that day when I called you the stupid sister. I looked up, surprised by the reference to a moment we rarely discussed directly. It was the worst thing I ever said to you, he continued. But in a strange way, It might have been the best thing that could have happened. If I hadn't pushed you away, you might never have founded Pinnacle. You might have compromised your vision to fit within Horizon's constraints. The world would have lost something valuable. That's an optimistic way of looking at a painful moment, I observed. He shrugged. Maybe. But I've learned that failure and pain often precede the greatest growth. My failure as Horizon's CEO led to personal growth I wouldn't have experienced otherwise. Your pain at being dismissed led you to build something revolutionary. His perspective was surprisingly insightful, a recognition that our journey, however difficult, had led us exactly where we needed to be. So, in retrospect, I said with a small smile, I should thank you for being such a dismissive jerk. He laughed, the sound genuine and free of defensiveness. Maybe not thank me, he suggested, but perhaps we can both appreciate that the path, however difficult, led us to something better than either of us could have created alone. As I considered his words, I realized that the true transformation wasn't just in our business success, or even in our improved sibling relationship. It was in how we both now approached challenges, with openness to different perspectives, with awareness of our own blind spots, with appreciation for complementary strengths rather than competition. The stupid sister and her dismissive brother had both disappeared, replaced by partners who recognized that the best outcomes emerge when different viewpoints are valued rather than suppressed. It wasn't the ending I had imagined when I stormed out of Horizon that day, wounded by Nathan's cruel words. It was something far more complex, more nuanced, and ultimately more rewarding. A partnership built not on perfect understanding, but on mutual respect for our differences. As Nathan gathered his materials to leave, he paused at the door of my office. By the way, he said casually, did you see Contech's quarterly report? Down 18% since our merger announcement. Turns out their predatory business model doesn't work when potential acquisitions join forces instead. I smiled, appreciating both the information and the subtle acknowledgement of our joint success. Karma has a way of finding those who prey on others' struggles. Indeed it does, he agreed. Fortunately for us, so does opportunity when people set aside their egos and work together. As he left, I turned to the window, looking out at the Westridge skyline where Pinnacle's headquarters now stood as one of the most prominent buildings. The stupid sister had come a long way, building a company, saving a family legacy, and most, surprisingly of all, transforming a painful relationship into a productive partnership. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't proving others wrong, but creating something so undeniably right that former adversaries become your strongest advocates. And sometimes the most powerful words aren't "I told you so," but "let's build something together." Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.